All right, ready to dive into some color today?
Let's do it.
Did you know that like every single culture in the world uh has names for like black and white?
It's true. Yeah, it's like the most basic way humans make sense of light and dark, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it gets really interesting because um if a culture develops a third color term, it's almost always red, and
Yeah.
then the fourth is either yellow or green.
That's wild.
I know, right? So we are looking at the Wikipedia article about basic color terms,
Cool.
and also this really fascinating piece about how the meaning of colors differs across cultures.
That seems really interesting.
So we're going to see how people like name colors and how it can be totally different depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, it really emphasizes how important light and dark are, I think, to like the human experience, you know?
I think so too.
Yeah.
And so in the Wikipedia article, it actually talks about this theory about how color terms develop, like how languages develop those
Oh,
terms.
yeah, the one by Berlin and Kay, right?
Yeah, like it's a specific order that they develop.
Yeah, exactly. It's in their book, Basic Color Terms. And they propose this theory that languages go through these stages of color term development.
So there's like a color roadmap that languages follow.
Kind of. Yeah, you can think of it that way.
Okay.
Like these building blocks. So like you said, it starts with black and white, the
Yeah.
stage are languages, and then they add red, and then either yellow or green.
Huh.
And it's been a super influential theory,
I bet.
but researchers later on found like it's not always that strict.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like Saunders and Levinson,
Okay.
they said that, well, the environment that a culture is in can actually impact which color terms they come up with first.
Like if they're in a really green place, maybe they'll prioritize green over yellow or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a dense forest, you might have more words for green, before you have like specific words for other colors.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like your environment is shaping how you talk about color. But it's still really cool that there's like this underlying pattern, though.
Oh, totally. It's like there's this framework, and then within that framework, you have variations,
Yeah.
which makes it even more fascinating when you think about those cultural differences we were talking about before.
Right, like the piece about how colors mean different things in different places.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's packed with cool examples.
Oh, I'm sure. Like, what's one?
Well, okay, so in India, red is like super important in weddings.
Okay.
They use henna, which is red,
Oh, yeah.
and then the sindoor
Yeah.
that they wear in their hair,
Right.
it's all about like red.
And in China, they use red for New Year celebrations and for weddings, too.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's a really great example of how one color can have all these different meanings.
Totally. And they're all like really important meanings, just in different ways.
Right, different contexts, but equally important in those contexts.
It's like colors speaking a different language.
It is like color is speaking a different language
Yeah.
depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah.
And it gets even more interesting when you look at a color like yellow.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, in France, yellow was actually used to mark the graves of criminals and traitors.
Wait, what? Like the color of sunshine?
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
like the opposite of what we usually think of yellow as.
Yeah, like happy things.
Right, exactly. But in France, it was this symbol of like betrayal and negativity.
That like completely changes my understanding of the color yellow.
It's so wild, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to China, and yellow represented royalty and power.
So it's like two completely opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right. And that really shows you how much culture impacts our perception of color.
For sure. It's not just about the color itself.
No, it's about all the cultural stuff that gets attached to it.
Right, all the religious ideas.
Yeah, religious and social factors that all play into how we see and understand color.
It's like a whole other layer of meaning.
It is like a whole other language almost.
Yeah.
A language of color.
Yeah, like,
Like blue, for example.
okay.
In English, we say feeling blue when we're sad.
Right.
But in the Middle East, blue is often connected to like safety and protection. And in Hinduism,
Okay.
it's the color of Krishna.
Oh, wow.
So you have sadness, safety, and joy all represented by the same color.
That's crazy how different it can be.
Yeah, and this idea that a color's meaning is like tied to how useful it is to a culture that's a key part of vantage theory.
Vantage theory.
Yeah, it builds on Berlin and Kay's research.
Oh, okay. What is vantage theory?
So basically it says that color categorization is affected by like how useful that color is to a certain group of people.
Okay.
So like if a culture depends on a certain color for their rituals or art or even survival, They're more likely to have a special name for it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not just about the color itself, but how it fits into their lives.
So, like, if a color is really important to how they live their lives, they'll have a word for it.
Exactly, and a good example is the Inuit cultures.
Okay.
They have a bunch of words for snow.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because it's such a huge part of where they live.
That makes sense.
And it's not just the environment either. Like the importance of certain objects can influence color perception too.
What do you mean?
Like, imagine a culture where a certain fruit or flower is really valuable and it has a really unique color.
Okay.
They might actually name a color after that object.
Huh. Never thought about it like that.
Yeah, it's like the object's importance gets passed on to the color.
Wow.
So you can really see how color becomes like its own language.
It's like reflecting what they value and believe in.
Yeah, exactly. And it also reflects their experiences.
So understanding that cultural context is like super important then.
It's crucial because it helps us appreciate how different people see the world.
Right. And it helps us avoid misunderstanding.
Exactly.
I'm starting to realize that I've probably been misunderstanding colors my whole life.
Well, you're not alone.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget that our own way of seeing color isn't the only way.
This deep dive is making me rethink everything.
That's a good thing, though, right? It means
So-
you're learning and growing.
True.
It's like opening up a whole new world.
Yeah.
So what's next on our color journey? What else do we want to explore?
I'm thinking about like how companies use color,
Oh, yeah.
like in marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
Don't they like spend a lot of time figuring out how certain colors make people feel?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a whole area of research.
Right.
Because color can really impact consumers, even if they don't realize it.
Yeah, like subliminally or something.
Exactly, like fast food chains.
Okay.
They use a lot of red and yellow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because those colors are supposed to make you hungry,
Yeah.
make you want to buy something right away.
So like it's not just a coincidence that so many fast food places look the same.
Not at all. There's a reason behind it.
But then thinking about what we were talking about before with the cultural differences.
Yeah,
Would those same colors work everywhere?
that's a great question, and it's something that companies have to think about carefully
Right.
because what works in one country might not work in another. A color that's positive in one culture could be negative in another.
It's like they have to solve this global color puzzle.
Yeah. It's like a whole other layer of complexity when you're marketing to the whole world.
It makes you realize how much color affects our lives.
It's everywhere, even if we don't consciously think about it.
Yeah, and it's not just about culture either.
Right? What do you mean?
Like even within the same culture, do you think everyone sees color the same way?
That's a really interesting question.
Like, I mean, obviously we all have our favorite colors,
Yeah.
but I never really thought about how my own experiences might change how I see a color.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
Right.
Like maybe you have a good or bad memory connected to a certain color.
Okay.
Or maybe your job influences how you see color.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, imagine a painter.
Okay.
They probably notice tiny differences in shades that most people wouldn't even see.
That's so true.
So yeah, even within the same culture, there can be a lot of individual variation.
Wow, this whole deep dive has really opened my eyes.
I'm glad to hear it.
I never realized how complicated something as simple as color could be.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
The next time you see a color, just take a second to think about all the different things it could mean.
That's a good idea.
You might be surprised at what you discover.
Well, thank you so much for taking us on this journey through the world of color.
It was my pleasure.
It's been really fascinating.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring the amazing world of color.
Yeah, there's always something new to learn.
You might even find a new favorite color along the way.
Exactly.
That's it for our deep dive today.
Thanks for listening, everyone.